Okay, today we're going to answer the question, who would be king of France if France was still a monarchy? Now, of course, France is not a monarchy. It is a republic, and it has not had a king or emperor for almost 150 years. But let's imagine that the French did want to restore their monarchy. Who would they choose as king? Well, it's a difficult question to answer because there are three main candidates who have a claim to the throne, and we're going to look at each one and why they claim that. To do so, let's start with Louis XIV, the most famous king of France, known as the Sun King. He was followed by Louis XV and then Louis XVI. It was Louis XVI who lost his head during the French Revolution. His son supposedly died in prison. There's some debate about that, but let's just assume that he died in prison. So France became a republic after the French Revolution. But as you probably know, shortly thereafter, a fellow over here named Napoleon became emperor. And he had a son who was briefly emperor as well. But after Napoleon fell, the Bourbon monarchy was restored again, and Louis the 16th's brother, Louis the XVIII, becomes king of France, and after him, their younger brother Charles the X becomes king. Now, during the reign of Charles the X, there was a revolution called the July Revolution, where some people in France wanted to make this individual the king because he had more liberal politics. And he was indeed a relative of the Bourbons through a different line of the family, so he had a good claim to the throne. Eventually, Charles X did abdicate in favor of Louis Philippe I. His son was supposedly king for about 20 minutes, and then a grandson was king for about a week. But eventually, Louis Philippe I took control and was proclaimed the king of the French. However, his reign did not last long. In 1848, there was another revolution, and France decided to go back to being a republic. So he was the only king in this branch, and he was the last king of the French. Now, there was actually one more monarch, an emperor, a distant relative of Napoleon, who restored the French Empire for some time, but then that also came to an end, and again, France went back to being a republic. So, who would we choose? We have this line of the family, which has died out completely, and so therefore the closest relatives of Louis XIV would actually be this branch of the family. But let's explain quickly why they may not have a good claim. If we go back to a period of time called the War of the Spanish Succession, the King of Spain, the royal house in Spain died out, and the closest relatives were the royal family in France. But the rest of the European countries did not want to have a single king over both France and Spain. So what ended up happening is Philip V, a grandson of Louis XIV, became king of Spain. And then the elder line here, they became king of France. And part of this deal was that Philip gave up his claim to the French throne for both himself and the rest of his relatives. So those who claim that this individual here, Louis Alphonse, Duke of Anjou, should not be king, do so on the basis that Philip gave up that right. So Louis Alphonse is actually the closest male relative to Louis XIV, but don't know if he should be king because his ancestor here gave up those rights. So if we assume that that is correct, and this line does not have a good claim to the throne, we then have to indeed go to the House of Orleans and the descendants of the last king of the French, Louis Philippe I. And his closest living male relative is Henri d'Orléans, Count of Paris. So there are some that claim that this individual has the better claim to the throne than this individual. Now it's further complicated because there's one more option. There are no living relatives of Napoleon or Napoleon III, but one of Napoleon's brothers. There are descendants, and the closest male descendant is Jean-Christophe, who is now called the Prince Napoleon. He also claims that he should be the king because he is the closest descendant of Napoleon. So there you have it, 3 individuals, all with a claim to the French throne. Fortunately, we probably will never have to solve this problem, but I'll leave it up to you to decide which you think has the best claim, and you can do so in the comments. That would be fun. Okay, thanks for watching.